some Torah?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, let's begin. Parshas Vayakel Pekudei. And Chazak. We finished Parshas Sefer Shemos. Let's begin. Let's see. It says, Vayakel Moshe's Kol Adas B'nei Yisrael. Moshe gathered all the Jewish people, the mitzvah of Hakel, bringing everybody together. Vayomer Aleim Eila Advorim Asher Tziva Hashem Lasos Osa. And it goes through once again the mitzvah of Shabbos. Throughout these weeks, when we talk about the Binyan HaMishkan, the Torah reminds us over and over again, 6 days a week you work. Uvayom Hashvi Yiyeh Lechem Kodesh, it should be a holy day for you. Shabbos, Shabboson LaHashem. So the Meforshim, emphasize that as important as the Mishkan was, and the Mishkan was going to be a kapora for the Chet HaEgel, and it seems they worked around the clock, because they finished the Mishkan within 3 months. They were working 24/6. But when it came Shabbos, as important as the Mishkan was, they did not do any work on the Mishkan. The Mishkan could not be done on Shabbos. So the Meshech Chochmah, he has a very interesting question. You have to understand this question. It's a very difficult question. The Mishkan is Hashem's house. You would think that when you're in someone's house, you would follow their customs because you're in their house. If you're a guest in someone's house, you follow their customs. Yet, in the Mishkan itself, on Shabbos, they did all the work. They cooked, they baked, they did shechita. Everything we cannot do on Shabbos, they did in the Mishkan on Shabbos. I would think the one place where you had to keep Shabbos extra carefully is the Mishkan. That's Hashem's house.
Mm-hmm.
So you go into Hashem's house and now you can do everything you can't do outside. So the Meshech Chochmah wants to know why. It's very unusual. It's a very difficult question. To be Mechalel Shabbos to build the Mishkan Asur, forget about that. And yet, when I go into the Mishkan, I'm going to see the Kohanim doing everything I can't do. So what's going on? So the Meshech Chochmah approaches it from a very interesting approach. He says, what's the purpose of Shabbos? The purpose of Shabbos is that we should reinforce our belief in God. Hashem created the world in 6 days, and He rested on the 7th day. We don't believe in evolution, we believe in creation, we believe in Hashem. Hashem created the world. So the whole purpose of keeping Shabbos is we affirm, we tell the world there's a God. That's why if a person violates Shabbos, it's like he worships idols. That's why if a person violates Shabbos, we have to be very careful with the wine he touches and everything else. That's why a person's whole emunah, what makes him kosher to be a witness and everything, is he keeps Shabbos. That's the standard. Shabbos is the gold standard. Because when you keep Shabbos, you're telling the world, I believe in Hashem. So the Meshech Chochmah says, when a person came into the Beis HaMikdash, the Mishkan, and he saw the avoda, he saw the shechita and the cooking and the fire and all the miracles, what did he walk out saying? There's a God. So in the Beis HaMikdash, doing the avoda created a belief in Hashem the same way we outside don't do it. So he says to Meshech Chochmah, the avoda doesn't so much ignore the restrictions of Shabbos as it makes the case in a different way. That means the whole purpose of Shabbos is to show the world there's a God. He says when you do the avoda in the Beis HaMikdash and you witness all the beautiful miracles, you're also making the case there is a God. So you accomplish the same thing. How you get to the end game is different, but the end is the same. You walk out saying there's Hashem. And they talk about that. They talk about the fact that people who came to the Beis HaMikdash were inspired. They were spiritually inspired. It made a big difference to them more than anything else. It says, they bring down from the Kloisenberger Rebbe, very nice. It says, V'shamu b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos, la'asos es ha-Shabbos. Most people think that the test of Shabbos is to keep Shabbos. He says, today, many people keep Shabbos. That's not the test. The test today is la'asos es ha-Shabbos, to make Shabbos special. That means there are a lot of people who keep Shabbos. But now you have to find a way to make Shabbos enjoyable. Around the Shabbos table, the foods you eat, the songs you sing, the Torah you say. Many people make Shabbos special by sleeping all day. That doesn't make Shabbos special. I'm not saying you shouldn't sleep. You're tired. It's a busy week. The Torah tells you have to work for 6 days. But there's this idea of making Shabbos special. That's what the Kloisenberger Rebbe says. He says today the challenge is la'asos es ha-Shabbos, to make Shabbos special. That means it's not enough anymore to just do Shabbos the way it is. You got to make it special.
Sleep not good, yeah, Shabbos, sleep.
It's okay. People who are tired can sleep, but you don't have to sleep the whole Shabbos. You know, some people like to sleep for 12 hours. It's called a bagel, it's around the whole 12 hours. You don't got to sleep the whole 12 hours.
Thank you.
Then it says, in the middle of the parsha, it talks about all the different things. It says, "V'chol isha chachmas levi yodea tovu." Everybody comments about this, that the women made thread, and those threads were sewn into curtains. What was so unique about the way they made the threads?
We're still on the animal.
Was still on the animal. That means they made the threads on the wool, on the goats and sheep. That's why it didn't become tomei. Women could make the threads, and then when all the sheep's threads were all made, somebody who was tar came and cut off all the threads, and they made it into these curtains. What did it take? So it says, the Gemara in Shabbos brings down, he hoiso undis yasera. It was a very special skill, a very special skill. Shemei agabi yizim tovun oson. They would so-called threaded while it was still connected to the goats.
Wouldn't it bleed?
Now, what?
Did it bleed?
No, they did it in a special way that it didn't bleed. Now, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, he says, which woman taught them how to do this? Who was the expert of the women that did this? So he has a whole bunch of drashos from, I guess, from Ksuvim, where he says, based on the Targum, he says in the Hayomim, that it was Miriam. Miriam taught them how to do it. And Miriam was called a smart woman, Isha Chachoma. Why? Because she was a midwife. And in the Gemara, it refers to a midwife as a smart woman. That's how the Gemara counts midwife. It's interesting how we have languages, how languages work. For example, in Israel, what's the Hebrew word for nurse?
Rofeh?
Rofeh is a doctor.
Achot?
Achot. Very good. Very good. The Hebrew word for nurse is achot. What's an achot? Sister. So why is a nurse called a sister? Because when the British were there, who were the nurses in the hospitals? The nuns.
Sisters.
They were sisters. What do you call a nun? A sister. So the Jews called over the nurse called achot, sister. So achot became the nurse. Because they used to use nuns.
Here some people also says sister or nurse.
Yeah, in Russia, what's
medical med sister.
What does sister mean? Sister.
Sister, yeah.
So why do they call it sister? Because I imagine they used to use nuns. Nuns used to work in the hospitals, so they were called sister. I heard Russia they call it the same thing.
Yeah, med sister.
Right.
Med sister.
So Miriam was a chachama. She was a smart woman. Why? Because the Gemara says a person who's a midwife is a chachma. Someone said very cute. He says there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that supports it. Because the Mishnah says Ezeo chacham haroa es
Nolad.
nolad. What's a nolad? The baby being born.
Nolad.
So if you're a midwife, what do you see? You see haroa es. That's not what the Mishnah means. The Mishnah means, of course, you can see what will happen from your actions. But our is hanolad, you see a baby being born, ezel chacham, that makes you a smart person. So it's cute that Miriam, Reb Chaim Kanievsky says she was the smart woman, referred to often as a smart woman, who was able to educate all the other women to do all this sewing that was done while it was on the sheep. Now the next thing is very interesting. It says, Vayomer Moshe b'nei Yisrael. Moshe said to the Jewish people, Ru'u, I want you to look. Ru'u, look. Korah Hashem b'shem. Hashem called by name. B'tzalel ben Uri ben Hur l'mata Yehuda. So Moshe made an announcement. B'tzalel is going to be the architect. B'tzalel. Why is B'tzalel going to be the architect?
Hashem said so.
Hashem said so. Hashem appointed him. What was Moshe trying to convey? A very important message. Moshe was 80 years old. How old was B'tzalel?
12.
13.
12.
13. It's not usual for someone who's 80 years old to listen to a 13-year-old kid. It's unusual. And the workers amongst the Jewish people were all ages, 40, 50, 60. Why would they take instructions from a 13-year-old kid? Even if you say in those days, 13-year-old, they were more mature, but the fact remains that he was 13 years old. So Moshe was telling the Jewish people, don't look at his age. It's not relevant. Hashem is giving him the wisdom and the chokhmah as if he's 100 years old. Age is not the issue. You know what the issue is? He has been given the job, the mandate. Who gave it to him? Hashem. If Hashem gave him the job, Hashem filled him with all the wisdom and knowledge you need to know. And we know this because when Moshe did the construction, he wanted to do the kalim, the vessels first, and then the Mishkan. And what did B'tzalel say to him? It's the opposite. You don't first buy the furniture, then build a house. First you build a house, get the mortgage, and then you buy the furniture. You got to do it the right way. So Moshe says, are you B'tzalel? Are you in the shadow of Hashem? Clearly, you know more than I know. How is that possible? Knows more than Moshe Rabbeinu. In this one area, he knows more than Moshe Rabbeinu. They bring down a story that there was a student of Rabbi Ber Leibowitz. Rabbi Ber Leibowitz was a big Rosh Yeshiva in Europe, in Vilna. He's buried in the Vilna cemetery. And this student came to America and had a very difficult halachic question and went to Rav Moshe Feinstein. And he asked Rav Moshe Feinstein the shaila, and Rav Moshe Feinstein in 3 minutes gave him the answer. So the student said to Rav Moshe, with no disrespect, he says, Rebbe, with no disrespect, if I would have asked my Rebbe, Reb Baruch Ber Leibowitz, the same question, he would have gone home for 3 days to think about it before he gave me the answer. Mm-hmm. And you gave me the answer in 3 minutes. Like, how? How did that happen? So Rav Moshe said to him, very interesting, Rav Moshe says, your Rebbe is a Rosh Yeshiva. Rosh Yeshivas think about things for 3 days. My job, Hashem made my job in this world to be the Posek Hador. The Posek Hador means someone who decides things, correct? As the Posek Hador, I have the answer in 3 minutes. It's not that I'm greater than Reb Baruch Ber. We're different. His mandate is to be a Rosh Yeshiva. That's what Rosh Yeshivas do. My mandate is to paskin halacha. That's what I do. Who gave these jobs to us? Hashem gave it to us. So I have the skills that I can answer in 3 minutes. It was not arrogant. It was a fascinating answer that Rav Moshe gave. They give a story that Rav Moshe Sher, who was one of the organizers of the Agudas Yisrael, and he was their executive director. So who did he consult? He had the greatest minds. He had Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. He would consult Rav Ruderman. When all these people passed away, who took over? The younger guys, the younger crowd. People who were younger than him, people he grew up with. So he once said to one of his, to one of his children, he said, who am I going to ask my shilas to? The people I would go to, the Rosh Yeshivas, they all passed away. And the guys that are here now are all younger than me. I'm going to ask people younger than me? So his son said to him, he says, once they join the Aguda and become part of the Moetzes Gedolei HaTorah, you'll see they'll change. They'll become like the Reb Moshe Feinsteins. Like, Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky. He's like Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky. Because he has a mandate. Once he has a mandate, once Hashem gives him the job to be a leader of Am Yisrael, you'll see he'll change. He'll grow, he'll be mature, he'll look older. He becomes a different person. That's the concept of a smicha. When you give someone smicha, they change. Now they have a piece of paper that Hashem gave them a mandate. Now they have the ability to make decisions. We find that by Rabbi Loza ben Azariah, the Gemara in Brachos. How old was he when he became the Nasi?
18.
18. The minute he got the job, how old did he look? He looked 70. Harei ani gaven shivim shana. So he no longer was the 18-year-old. People no longer looked at him as being 18. What changed? He had a job. The Sanhedrin appointed him the head. The minute the Sanhedrin appointed him the head, he became the Rosh Hashiva. He became the head. He became the head. He looked the role. He looked the job. So it's interesting. Moshe was saying to everybody, Betzalel is not 13 years old. He may look 13. He may even act like he's 13. But when it comes to the Mishkan, Hashem gave him knowledge, gave him ability, gave him wisdom. Wisdom more than all of us. He will not make mistakes. He knows what he's doing. You have to trust him. Okay, you have to trust him that he knows what he's doing. Rabbi Fran brings down over here something very interesting. He says the Mishkan by itself was very pretty. And then what did they do? They covered it over with all these type of curtains, from all different sides. So he says that even though it was very beautiful, we covered it over, not to show it off. We never showed off the Mishkan. The Mishkan was never paraded around. As a matter of fact, when things were carried, even the kelim, they were covered over. When people stared at the Aron, it cost them their lives. They had to be very, very careful. So he says that, the Mishkan, we learn from here not to parade our wealth. We have to be a little bit tzniistic, we have to be a little bit humble. It says, Vayasu, they made, by the menorah, by the shulchan, by the mizbeach, but by the Aron it says, Vayas Betzalel, Betzalel made. So they learn now from here that anybody can make the menorah. Anybody can make the shulchan. As a matter of fact, Shlomo Melech made 10 menorahs and 10 shulchans. And the mizbeach was changed. One of the kings, he didn't have a good model. He used from Ashur, the model of the Mizbeach, but he changed the Mizbeach. The one thing that can never be changed was the Aron. The Aron was Betzalel's. Once it was missing in the second Beis HaMikdash, did they replace it with another Aron? Not at all. Which, by the way, is very interesting. During the second Beis HaMikdash, every year the Kohen Gadol went into the Kodesh Kedoshim. What happened?
Died.
He died. There were 300 Kohen Gadol. Okay, one Kohen Gadol made it for 40 years, one Kohen Gadol made it for 80 years. It was 420 years together. Why did they die?
Because they paid to get their job.
They paid to get the job, and they went into the Kodesh Kedoshim. But what Avera did they do while they were in the Kodesh Kedoshim?
Corruption?
Didn't have in mind proper.
There had to be. Some people, people think, they must have stared at the Aron. Just one problem.
Wasn't there?
It wasn't there. That means the Kodesh Kedoshim, in the second Beis HaMikdash, what was in the room? Nothing. It was just the rock.
So are they
The
there?
Evan Shasiyah. There was nothing there. It was an empty room. So the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur went into an empty room. In the first Beis HaMikdash, at least he had the Aron. They put the psalming, the Ketores between the Baalei Aron, they had the Aron. So you could at least, by mistake, you could stare. Gold, the Kruvim, it must have been a sight. First Beis HaMikdash, you had something to look at. The second Beis HaMikdash, there was nothing to look at. And yet they still died.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they still tried to pay money to go in. And they still died. Like it's so bizarre that, the second Beis HaMikdash, they did this over and over again. And it didn't make a difference. There was nothing there to look at. And yet because they didn't have the right kavanah, even though it was the holiest day of the year and the holiest man, they still, it didn't affect, it affected them in such a way that they still were not, they were not successful in what they had to do. So that I found to be something that was very, very interesting. Okay, let's go a little bit further. The next thing is a little bit more complicated, Let's see what we can accomplish with it. Maybe we'll finish even earlier, but we'll see how we're going to do time-wise. 9:07, okay. Look what it says. It says that Moshe gathered all the Jewish people, and then we have the halacha of Shabbos. So what is the halacha? What is the rules of Shabbos? So it says, Sheishes yomim te'asam halacha. 6 days a week you should work. So number one, we see from here that a person should work. Now that's what it says. A person should work. It's not good for a person to be home all day and not working. Ubayom hashvi, and on the 7th day, right, Ubayom hashvi, yihiyeh lochem kodesh. It should be holy. Okay? So now, let's try to figure this out. Good evening. Let's try to figure this out. How do we decide when Shabbos is? Let me explain to you my question. Let's say there's a Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. Okay? But we're in America, we're in New York. So now, in Yerushalayim, there's 7 hours ahead. So it becomes 7 o'clock at night, Friday night, and the sun is setting, and in Yerushalayim starts Shabbos. Maybe, once they accept Shabbos in Yerushalayim, all the Jews all over the world have to accept Shabbos. So our Shabbos should start on Friday at noon. And it should end Saturday at noon. After all, how does it look that they're bringing korbanot on Shabbos in the Beit HaMikdash, and by us it's Friday? That means, who decides the clock? We have Greenwich Mean Time, right? We have Greenwich. Who says Greenwich is the line? The world, the non-Jewish world. Maybe Shabbos goes after Yerushalayim. So they have a big discussion about this. In the Rishonim, they talk about this at length. And it comes out that they say as follows. Uvayom hashvi, on the 7th day, yiyeh lochem kodesh. You have to make it holy. So Shabbos is decided by where you are. So if you're in New York, sunset is at one time. And if you're in California, it's 3 hours later. So you can have Jews in the world, where in some parts of the world it's Shabbos, and some parts of the world it's not. Not all Jews keep Shabbos at the same time in the world. It's a very interesting concept.
Especially in Japan.
Especially in Japan. We're going to get to that in a moment.
Everybody keeps Shabbat.
Everybody
What's
keeps
their time?
Shabbos based on where they are and their clock. So, for example, you were on a ship, and the ship sank, and you swam to a desert island. And you were unconscious, you don't know how many days, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. You have no idea what day of the week it is. How do you keep Shabbos? What do you do? You're in a desert island, you have no clock, no watch, you only know when sunrise is and sunset is, that you can figure out. You have no idea what day of the week it is. You don't have a clue. It's
Count-
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Count
Thursday.
6 days and 7 days.
So the answer is, you start, today is Sunday, you count 6 days, and the 7th day is Shabbos. Now, that 7th day, to the rest of the world, could be Wednesday, Tuesday. You don't know. But for you, it's Shabbos. Why? Because the Torah says, "V'yom hashvi yeh lechem kodesh." Okay, now, listen to this. When we keep Shabbos, how do we know that the day we call Shabbos, Saturday, is really Shabbos?
Just by calendar.
The Goyim keep Sunday. The Arabs keep Friday. How do we know that Shabbos is Shabbos? Maybe in the olden days, a week was not 7 days. A week could have been 10 days or 12 days. So how do we know? Very interesting answer. We know Shabbos is Shabbos. Because we know from Moshe Rabbeinu. How did Moshe know when Shabbos was?
Hashem said.
No.
The entire 6
The
days
man-
work.
Oh, man was twice.
Fell on Friday, didn't fall on Shabbos. So the first week they were in the desert, and they had man. And all of a sudden, one day, two fell. Moshe says, today is Friday. Tomorrow, no man fell, it's Shabbos. So in the desert, they knew exactly when Friday was, when Shabbos was. Then they counted, and they ended the week. And every week was the same. So they had 40 years of experience like clockwork. They knew exactly when Friday was, when Shabbos was. So there was no mistake. And that continued on with Yoshua and everybody else. So we know when Shabbos is. We have that information. We know. Because of the way it was for Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay. When I was, in Winnipeg for 12 years, we had a bigger problem. In Motzei Shabbos, it never got dark. That means that we never had Shitas Rabbeinu Tam. You could go out at 1 o'clock in the morning and you could read a newspaper outside. You had the lights of the Borealis, but we were so far north.
Where is it?
In Canada, all the way up north. So how did we decide when Shabbos was? We had a psak that the moon had to be a certain degree in the sky. And that's where most communities had Shitas Rabbeinu Tam. So we got from the observatory a lunar guide. I had a big guide, I used to get it every year, and we would calculate the degree of the moon. And then we set up when Shabbos. So the latest time in the summer Shabbos was out was 10:40. It was 20 to 11.
Wow.
Okay? 20 to 11. There were many people who made Havdalah Sunday morning.
It's
That means-
in summertime, right?
In the summertime. Most kids never saw Havdalah. You could go 4 months, if you had little kids at home that were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, that went to sleep by 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. They never saw Havdalah for 6 months, for 5 months, 6 months. They never saw Havdalah. So many parents, in order to make Havdalah for their children,
Sunday.
would make Havdalah Sunday morning. They would do Moreh Eish Friday and Saturday night, but they would do the Havdalah Sunday morning. And if you go further north, where it's 6 months light and 6 months dark, so then you have to either have a 24-hour period. There are different opinions of what to do. But it's not so simple. That means the solutions to the problems are not so simple. Okay? Now let's go a little bit further. Life gets more complicated now that we fly. And I'll give you an example. If I'm in Hawaii and it's Tuesday, and I leave Hawaii Tuesday at noon, and I'm flying to Australia. While I'm flying across the Pacific, I cross an imaginary line. You know what that line is called? The International Date Line. The minute I cross that line, I lose a whole day. So I'm flying, it's Tuesday, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I cross the line, now it's Wednesday, 3 o'clock. I just lost the whole day. When do I keep Shabbos? When I get to Australia, I've only worked 5 days that week. I lost a whole day disappeared. So I don't have 6 days. So do I keep Shabbos on Shabbos? I keep Shabbos on Sunday.
According to Hashem says 7 days, so you have to count 7 days.
Count 7 days. But yet the Torah says you keep Shabbos where you are.
Oh, so on Sunday.
So if it's in Australia, that week is a 6-day week for you, not a 7-day week, you keep Shabbos. That's an easy question. Now I'm flying with a newborn baby. And I'm supposed to give the bris for the baby on the 8th day. But one day just disappeared. Now when do I give the bris? Does the count the day that disappears or not? So the answer is no.
No.
Now
You
I
have to
gotta
count
count
8 days.
24. I gotta count 8 days.
Yeah, it's disappeared.
So if the baby was born on a Monday, normally the bris is the following Monday.
Tuesday.
It's not going to be until the following Tuesday. And the same person, if a woman is counting her period, has to count 7 days, she has to count. And Pidyon Abed has to count.
Because
Now we get to Hanukkah.
physically you didn't live this day.
That's right. You didn't live that day. Now, let's get to Hanukkah. You left, you lit candles in Hawaii as the second night of Hanukkah. You land in Australia, you come to your guest house, and they're lighting the fourth day.
You missed the third.
You missed the third.
What do you like?
What do you light?
Third.
Do you light the third or the fourth?
Third.
So no, they're not sure. The Ger Rebbe has a shita, the Lubavitcher Rebbe has a shita, but many people say you light the fourth because you light where you are. So you light the fourth because you're yotze with one. But look at it from the other side. You leave Australia and you end up in Hawaii. So you left Australia, you lit day 3. Now you come Hanukkah, and what are the
Day 3
lighting?
again.
Day 3. But I lit day 3. But it's a new day. Do you light it all? Maybe you don't have to light it all. You already lit the third day candle. Why should you light it twice? Take it a step further. You leave Australia, Motzei Shabbat. You made Havdalah, you get on the plane. You fly to Hawaii. Guess what happens? When you land in Hawaii, it's Shabbos morning. Now you land in the airport, it's Shabbos morning. I just kept Shabbos. Now I didn't even have one. I made Havdalah 12 hours ago. I made Havdalah, and now you're telling me it's Shabbos morning. So there's some people who say you're right. It's not Shabbos for you. You can get in a car and go to your hotel. There's some people who say no, it is Shabbos in the area. What happens if it's Yom Kippur?
Don't fly.
Don't fly. That's the answer. Don't fly. Because what are you going to do? It gets even harder with Sfirat HaOmer. You're counting the Omer. You can't miss a day. You miss a day, you can't make a bracha. Now you're flying, and all of a sudden you miss a day. For you, it's day 22, and in Australia, they're counting day 23. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says you keep counting. For you, it's day 23, day 24. So your Shavuot is going to be different than theirs. That's the one exception. You know why? Because there's no date of Shavuot in the Torah. In the Torah, Shavuot comes after you count 49 days. Day 50 is Shavuot. So you can have some people keep Shavuot one day, and some people keep Shavuot a different day because they cross the international date line. So it says if one remains in Taiwan for Shavuot, he should keep Shavuot in accordance to his personal count. We're not even going to talk about you put on tefillin, then you have to put on tefillin again. Sometimes you go around the world, how many times you put on tefillin. There's so many different opinions as to what you can do, what you cannot do, that it's impossible to know. It's impossible to know what is the right thing or what is not the right thing. It gets so complicated, and of course the best answer is don't fly during certain times of the year. Don't fly on Hanukkah. Don't fly with a newborn baby. Don't fly right before Shabbos. Don't fly on Yom Kippur. These are things that they tell you don't do in order to avoid the international date line. Okay, there's a famous story that they give with the Bov of the Rebbe. Famous story. I think it's with the Bov of the Rebbe. It says there was a couple that were married for many, many years. They didn't have children. And they were consulting fertility clinics and doctors, and they were taking certain drugs and medications so she should become pregnant. Anyway, finally, they get called into the clinic, and the doctor comes with a big smile and says, I have great news for you. Based on the sequence of drugs that you were taking and the calendar and your cycle, we've calculated that if the two of you are together on Wednesday, let's say October 8th, you will become pregnant. This is the best news in the world. They've been trying for 10 years, 15 years. Anyway, they're not excited. And when they leave, they go to the Bov of a Rebbe. And they say to the Bov of a Rebbe, we just came back from the fertility clinic, we were trying to have children. And they told us that if we have relations on October 8th, that night, Wednesday night, my wife will get pregnant. So the Bov of a Rebbe says, that's great. What's the problem? He says, that night is Yom Kippur night. And according to the halacha, you can't have relations Yom Kippur night. So do we have a special head there to have relations because we want to have children? So the Bov of a Rebbe calls his shamash and says to him, bring over the envelope in the top drawer, brings over the envelope, and counts out $2,000. So the young man says, Rebbe, the money will help us because our bills are very, very much. But that doesn't answer our question. My question is, are we allowed to have relations Wednesday night? You know, that's the calendar. It's Yom Kippur. It's Yom Kippur night. So the Bava Rebbe says, the money's not for you. The money's to buy an airline ticket for you and your wife to Australia. Because in Australia, you'll fly, you'll lose a day. So now your Wednesday night that you're supposed to have relations is really Thursday night. Thursday night is the night after Yom Kippur. So it's not a problem. Now, it takes someone brilliant to think of that. On the spot. He gave him $2,000, says, buy tickets to Australia. Go to Australia. You're flying, you cross the international date line, you'll keep Yom Kippur Wednesday night, but your cycle is based not on the international date line, it's on the 24-hour cycle. So your day now becomes Thursday night. Because in America, Wednesday night is Thursday night in Australia. And you'll have avoided all the problems.
Smart.
That's a smart man. That's someone who's quick on his feet, and he was known to be a brilliant man, but there's also someone who cares about Jews and who cares about people, and he knows what's going on. Okay, he knows what's going on. So that's something that is very, very fascinating. The Mishkan, they started to build the Mishkan the day after Yom Kippur, and they were excited. They gathered everything that they needed. So much so that the Nesiim almost lost out. They couldn't bring anything. They brought the stones. When did they finish all the construction? When was the menorah, the shulchan, the aron, all the beams, the curtains, everything finished?
Kislev.
Kislev. Chofei Kislev. Chanukah. So it was all finished. And yet, it just sat in storage. For the rest of Kislev, and Teves 1 month, Shvat 2 months, Adar 3 months, and if it was a leap year, it would have been 4 months. And then only at the end of Adar, they started to assemble it, finally to assemble it on Rosh Chodesh Nisan.
This Shabbat,
Right, this Shabbos. Why did they wait 3.5 months? Why did they wait? Now, maybe there is something to be said about waiting. The importance, we know that the Rav Sternberg talks about the importance of not delaying mitzvahs. The Chazal say, mitzvahs habol liyotcha al tach mitzena. Don't let a mitzvah, delay itself. So what was so special? Why was the Mishkan, delayed? So they bring down an answer over here. It's based on a Zohar, on a Ramban, and this will end, and we'll talk about it again next week a little bit more. Brings down the Gemara. There's a famous Gemara. The Gemara says that when the Beis HaMikdash was being destroyed, Hashem said to Avram, your children sinned. So Avram says, listen, you gave them so many chances. If they sinned, it's too late. They deserve what they get. Said, let me tell Yaakov. Yaakov, your children sinned. Yaakov said the same thing. You gave them so many chances, forget about it. Says, I'm going to ask Yitzchak. And Yitzchak said, Hashem said to Yitzchak, your children sinned. He said, they're only my children, they're not your children. And I dealt with Esau, and I dealt with Ishmael. Let's split the Averos. And Yitzchak advocates for them. Yitzchak was born in Nisan. So he brings down over here, based on Chazal, the Gemara, the Zohar, he says, Hashem said, I know the Mishkan is not going to last forever. I know the first and second Beis HaMikdash is not going to last forever. When they get destroyed, who will fight for the Jewish people? Only Yitzchak will. So therefore, because he's going to fight for them, I'm going to put it up in the month that he was born. And everybody will know that it's Yitzchak's Beis HaMikdash, it's Yitzchak's Mishkan, because it was his birthday gift. And that's why they waited till then. That's what the Zohar writes. Interesting Zohar. And he says they waited until that time. Of all the Avos, only Yitzchak would come to their aid. And he was there. He was born in the month of Nisan. So, that's a fascinating thing. There are different shitas when Yitzchak was born, but it seems that when the Malachim came to Avram, right, to say the Sorah, what did Avram feed them? Matzos. Why? It was Pesach time. Pesach is in Nisan. And the Malachim said, next year this time you're going to have a baby. And next year this time they had a baby. So Yitzchak was born on Pesach. Yitzchak's birthday is Pesach, is Nisan. So they waited till Rosh Chodesh Nisan as a birthday gift for Yitzchak. And that's why he got the reward. Have a good night, everybody.
Avram,
Try to stay safe.
Avram for us, yeah, Shmuel.
Avram could have argued, yes. And Yaakov could have said, listen, I dealt with Yosef, I dealt with the brothers, but they didn't. Yitzchak, the Gemara in Shabbos, Yitzchak was the only one that fought for the children. Not sure why, but he did.